television, telecommunications, weather satellites, GPS, even the internet. We rely on space-based machines in our everyday life. But just because we rely on them doesn't mean that producing working satellites and functioning satellites is easy. It's not easy. The environment of space, the specialized and sometimes inefficient propulsion techniques and systems, and the high cost to even get to space make space travel difficult. The environment of space is very harsh, not only to an unprotected human body, but also to the spacecraft that's in space. As you know, space is a vacuum. And the vacuum makes travel very difficult because everything has to be contained properly, and otherwise it will escape into the atmosphere. According to Courtney Howard's article, Surviving the Space Environment in Military and Aerospace Electronics magazine, radiation, which is abundant in space, alters how electronics work and operate, and this can cause all sorts of errors. In this article, Min Yen said, high reliability, radiation-hardened, and radiation-tolerant components are vital in aerospace and defense applications. In space, temperatures can range from very, very, very cold, as most of us think of space, to very, very hot, more than hot enough to instantly evaporate water and most liquids. Sandia Toons, in her book, Surviving Orbit the DIY Way, says that in space, it can get as cold as minus 269 degrees Celsius. That's minus 452 degrees Fahrenheit. It's pretty cold. But on the other hand, temperatures can also increase to over 400 degrees Celsius, which is 752 degrees Fahrenheit. So really, really hot, kill anyone. These temperature swings are due to the spacecraft being in the sun or out of the sunlight. She says that spacecraft can only operate in these conditions based on tricks and techniques like rotating the craft to distribute the sunlight evenly. And that only lets them modulate the temperature range around minus 100 to 100 C. So the environment of space is very, very harsh, and it makes travel difficult. But even moving in space can be very, very difficult and fraught with dangers. The propulsion technology is far from perfect, or it's too specialized and not really for general use in space. In Antimatter to Ion Drives, NASA's plan for deep space propulsion, Cathal O'Connell says that chemical rockets are advanced to their limits, and now they limit us in terms of their efficiency and their energy. Chemical rockets are like the ones that you see blasting off with giant fire plumes behind them. An alternative to chemical rockets, which is ion engines, or engines that shoot ions, which are charged particles, while they're very, very efficient, so you won't have to refuel very often, they produce very little thrust, according to O'Connell. He states that the thrust is, quote, equivalent to the pressure of a piece of paper on the palm of your hand. That's pretty small. Solar sails, which are another method which use the light of the sun as wind, eliminate the need for fuel, but they only work really when you're near the sun. On the other hand, nuclear power, while efficient and extremely powerful, is difficult and dangerous to use, and according to O'Connell, it can also violate treaties. So there seems to be no end-all, be-all to space propulsion, but even propulsion and the harsh environment of space aren't the limit of difficulties. Likely, one of the largest problems in space travel is the outrageous cost to even reach space. In an article for the Physical Times, Billy Dent states that New Horizons, which was recently in the news for its flyby of Pluto, cost over $700 million to develop, plan, market, and execute. With $700 million, you could buy over 12,000 2017 Corvette Stingray. 12,000. I mean, that's a lot. But New Horizons wasn't even the worst. Jeremy Su of Space.com claims that the Space Shuttle program throughout its entirety is estimated to have cost around $200 billion. That's with a B. I won't even mention how many Corvettes you could buy for that money. So why is space so expensive? Well, it's mainly because the payload, or the object being brought to orbit, the mass of that, is so much less than the mass of the actual rocket. So they're carrying all this extra weight. For example, SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket, which is a modern rocket, only brings a small percentage of its starting mass into orbit, according to SpaceX's own website. Please refer to the handout. So the graph on the upper left shows the mass delivered to low Earth orbit in blue versus the mass launched in red. As you can see, it's a pretty small sliver. And the second graph, so directly to its right, shows the mass that could arrive at Mars versus the mass launched. The payload makes up less than 1% of the total mass. That's like launching a Corvette and only half of a steering wheel arriving at Mars. That's not a very large chunk. So to illustrate again visually, look at the bottom left picture, which shows the Falcon 9's payload to low Earth orbit. And on the picture to its right, you can see it on the very tip of the rocket. So as you can see, it's not really much of the rocket itself. It's just a very, very small portion. And so most of the rocket is used in just getting to the location and isn't even used on site where they're going. That's why it's so expensive. The distances are far, and therefore a very large vehicle is needed. Remember, just because we rely on satellites doesn't mean that producing working satellites is easy. It is not easy. The hostile environment of space, the immense hurdles that have to be crossed in order to even move, and the massive cost to develop, manufacture, and launch spacecraft make space travel difficult. Despite the difficulties, however, we still do it. Not just to prove we can, but because our very lifestyles now depend so heavily upon it. Therefore, we will continue to push the boundaries, and we will continue making and launching rockets. We will do these things, as President Kennedy said most famously at Rice University, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. And I think that that statement he made is still true today.
Thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you.